today's discussion on generative adversarial networks. You have already seen about artificial neural networks, recurrent neural networks, convolutional neural networks, and today we will discuss briefly about the generative adversarial networks. These are called GANs or JANs, as you would like to pronounce. So, the objective of today's discussion is to introduce you to the GANs, applications of the generative adversarial networks, their architecture and the types of these networks. To just a recap, this is how an artificial neural network looks like, where you have the input layer, that is the first column, then an output layer, that is the last column, and in between you have columns that are called hidden layers. Basically all these are neurons and they all are fully connected in an artificial neural network, but that need not be the case with every type of neural network. So, input x is given and the output y is produced, and the processing happens across all the hidden layers. Even it is possible that you have some processing component at the output layer before producing the output. This is how a normal neural network looks like, but the same is not the case when you go into different types of neural networks. You have already seen it in the case of convolutional neural networks, and in the case of recurrent neural networks also you have seen it, that they do not exactly look the way this particular network looks. This is the RNN architecture. It is again just a recap, wherein you find that the output is again fed into the input, due to which input and the earlier output becomes the current input, and that is what produces after processing the current output, which is again fed to the input. So, in this way for RNNs it is possible to remember the past. Now, this is the convolutional neural network, wherein you have the input layer, you have the output layer. You find that there are activation functions in them which will be processing, and these are very famous for image processing. You have a huge input initially, then they are mapped in such a way that the huge data gets scaled down to less, and then they are processed, and at the output again it is a fully connected network, and ultimately it will produce the output. They are very famous in image processing. Particularly, suppose you input an image, this network should be in a position to tell what is that image. For example, you have put the image of a cat, it should be in a position to recognize it and say this is cat. So, there are many applications of CNNs. Now, tell me who is in this image, whose photo is this one? Will you can tell me the answer after the entire lecture is over. So, take your time. Who are all these people? There are 4 faces here, there is a face here. So, in total there are 5 faces. Who are all they? Are you able to recognize at least one of them? Does not matter. In case you are unable to recognize, you can tell me later. Now, let us see what is a generative adversarial network. It is a class of machine learning frameworks designed by Ian Goodfellow and his colleagues in 2014. 2 neural networks contest with each other in a game in the form of a zero-sum game, where one agent's gain is another agent's loss. Given a training set, this technique learns to generate new data with the same statistics as the training set. For example, a GAN trained on photographs can generate new photographs that look at least superficially authentic to human observers, having many realistic characteristics. Though originally proposed as a form of generative model for unsupervised learning, GANs have also proven useful for semi-supervised learning, fully supervised learning and reinforcement learning. The core idea of a GAN is based on the indirect training through the discriminator, which itself is also being updated dynamically. This basically means that the generator is not trying to minimize the distance to a specific image, but rather to fool the discriminator. This enables the model to learn in an unsupervised manner. So, these networks are very useful to basically weed out those that are not real. It is having huge applications. So, this is the architecture of a generative adversarial network. You can see that there is input. Now, the input is having two types. One is the real data, another is fake data. So, prior to that you have generator and prior to that you have noise. So, basically the fake data is created with the help of a neural network GAN called generator. Then it generates the fake data which looks real, and this real data and the fake data together they are provided as input to the discriminator. This discriminator again is a neural network which will weed out the fake ones from the real ones. And again in here also you will see that the output is provided as input to the generator in some cases, which we will be looking in detail in the coming up slides. That discriminator will always try its best to find the fake things which are really fake. Discriminator may mistake sometimes a real one as a fake one as a real one. So, that is a failure. So, generator will try its best to create such fake data which discriminator will not be able to discriminate, distinguish. That is the objective of the generator, and the discriminator's objective is to distinguish between the real ones and fake ones to the maximum accuracy possible. Okay. So, this is the main feature of a GAN. The generator is a neural network that models a transform function. It takes as input a simple random variable and must return once trained a random variable that follows the targeted distribution. As it is very complicated and unknown, we decide to model the discriminator with another neural network. This neural network models a discriminative function. It takes a point as input and returns as output the probability of this point to be a true one. The goal of the generator is to fool the discriminator, as I already told you. So, the generative neural network is trained to maximize the final classification error between true and generated data. The goal of the discriminator is to detect fake generated data. So, the discriminative neural network is trained to minimize the final classification error. So, at each iteration of the training process, the weights of the generative network are updated in order to increase the classification error, that is the error gradient ascent over the generator's parameters, whereas the weights of the discriminative network are updated so that to decrease this error gradient descent over the discriminator's parameters. These opposite goals and the implied notion of adversarial training of the two networks explains the name of adversarial networks. Both networks try to beat each other, and by doing so they are both becoming better and better. The competition between them makes these two networks progress with respect to their respective goals. From a game theory point of view, we can think of this setting as a mini-max two players game where the equilibrium state corresponds to the situation where the generator produces data from the exact targeted distribution and where the discriminator predicts true or generated with probability of 1/2 for any point it receives. What does generative mean in the name generative adversarial network? Basically, as I have already showed you in the architectural diagram, a generator will generate the fake data. That is the most important thing which you have to remember. How it generates fake data? It generates fake data with the help of a transform, with the help of an equation. That equation will generate the fake data in such a way that the data generated will look similar to the real data to the discriminator. So, that is the primary objective. So, you should be in a position to design a transform function in the of the generator, so that it keeps on generating the fake data that is almost equal or nearer to the real data that can fool the discriminator. That is the objective of the generator. So, generative models, they can generate new data instances. Discriminative models, they can discriminate between different kinds of data instances. A generative model could generate new photos of animals that look like real animals, while a discriminative model could tell a dog from a cat. So, GAN is a generative model where data is generated. The most important thing is that even in CNNs and RNNs, we do not have this type of formula where data is generated. Whatever data is given, that is trained, and in the case of CNNs, what we are doing is the massive amount of data which we receive, we are mapping it to a smaller set of data, which we will be processing using the activation functions. But in the GANs, we are also generating the data. More formally, the given set of data instances x and a set of labels y. Generative models capture the joint probability p x of y or just p x if there are no labels. Discriminative models, they capture the conditional probability of p y by x. A generative model includes the distribution of data itself and tells you how likely a given example is. For example, models that predict the next word in a sequence are typically generative models. They are usually much simpler than the generative adversarial networks, because they can assign a probability to a sequence of words. So, we often find that whenever we type something, you get something which you would like to type. This is a feature of Gmail, wherein of course, this feature is available across many systems, but in the case of Gmail, as you are typing in the body, you will find that it is prompting you that would it like to continue with the words it is hoping that will come in the future. So, you have to just press a tab to accept it. So, how all these things are happening? These are happening due to the neural networks that are trained to your typing trend, as well as the information that is available in their data set, that such sentences when they are typed, like what is your, okay, automatically name flashes, you tab, the name comes. So, you do not need to type the name. So, what is your is remembered. So, in the data set, what is your name is something which is coming up very frequently. So, the neural network automatically prompts you for it. So, what is your, when it prompts name, you do not need to type the name, you just tab it. So, this is how it guesses. So, I have already told you about LSTMs, long short term memory neural networks, and here generative adversarial networks. All these work together to achieve these things. So, a discriminative model ignores the question of whether a given instance is likely and just tells you how likely a label is to apply to instance. So, neither kind of model has to return a number representing a probability. You can model the distribution of data by imitating that distribution. So, anything that is generated, you do not need to have a probability that the generated data is almost equal to the real. Okay. And in the case of discriminator also, it does not output any such probability which says that this particular data is fake. Again, that data is fed back, those decisions are fed back, due to which the generator will be able to generate better fake data to fool the discriminator, and the discriminator keeps on communicating, saying that this is the fake data which you have sent me and this is not the real data. So, generative models, they tackle a more difficult task than analogous discriminative models. Generative models have to model more. A generative model for images, they might capture correlations like things that look like boats are probably going to appear near things that look like water, and eyes are unlikely to appear on the foreheads. So, these are very complicated distributions. In contrast, a discriminative model might learn the difference between sailboat or not sailboat by just looking for a few telltale patterns. It could ignore many of the correlations that the generative model must get right. So, these discriminative models are very useful in recognizing things in a very accurate manner. If somebody shows a fake photograph, the network should be in a position to say that this is fake, this is not real, but for a human it may look real. So, the discriminative models, they try to draw the boundaries in the data space, whereas generative models, they try to model how data is placed throughout the space. Discriminative model tries to tell the difference between handwritten zeros and ones by drawing a line in the data space. If it gets the line right, it can distinguish zeros and ones without ever having to model exactly where the instances are placed in the database on either side of the line. So, GANs, they offer an effective way to train such rich models to resemble a real distribution. To understand how they work, we will need to understand the basic structure of a generative adversarial network. Have a look at it. So, here we have the discriminative and generative models of handwritten digits. So, to the left you have discriminative model and to your right you have the generative model. So, you can see that the input is handwritten. Okay. So, it is going as input to the discriminative model. So, the discriminative model is able to say that from the zeros, the first one is not exactly 0 if a human reads it, but the second one is 0, but still it has mapped both of them to 0. And in the case of second instance, if you see, a human will say that it is not 1, but the second one is 1, but still it said y is equal to 1. Now, think of the generative model. Now, for the generative model, what we have done is that again we have given the same inputs. Okay. Here what is happening is you have a real input and you have a fake input, of course. Okay. Again, now a generative model also is saying that y equal to 0 and y equal to 1. So, these are the discriminative models of discriminative and generative models of handwritten digits. The most important thing is, in the discriminative model you can see the line. The line basically divides the fake ones and from the real ones. If that discriminative model is able to get that line right, it means that it is successful in realizing the fake ones. Normally that does not happen. So, a GAN has two parts, a generator and a discriminator. Generator learns to generate plausible data, a discriminator learns to distinguish the generator's fake data from real data. When training begins, the generator produces obviously fake data and the discriminator quickly learns to tell that it is fake. Both the generator and the discriminator are neural networks. The generator output is connected directly to the discriminator input. Through back propagation, the discriminator's classification provides a signal that the generator uses to update its weights. So, I have given you the figure where the two sample boxes represent these two data sources feeding into the discriminator. So, here is that one, you can see the diagram. Here you find that you have a generator, you have a discriminator, and here we are having the random input. The random input is given to the generator and the generator is creating the sample. Basically, generator is generating the sample. This sample will be almost like real images. So, the real images are generating sample, generator is also generating sample. So, sample means a part of real images, generator means a part of the random input. So, these samples will look similar and they are given as input to the discriminator. When they are given as input to the discriminator, here you can see two functions, one is discriminator loss, the other is generator loss. These are the outputs of the discriminator, wherein it discriminates between the fake and the real. So, here if you see what is discriminator, so the discriminator in a GAN is simply a classifier. It tries to distinguish real data from the data created by the generator. It could use any network architecture appropriate to the type of data it is classifying. The discriminator's training data comes from the two sources, that is real data and the fake data. So, here let us see the back propagation in the discriminator training. So, the discriminator keeps on becoming more sharper and intelligent due to the back propagation. So, what happens is that whatever output is provided by the discriminator, here again it is acting as input and it is combining with both the samples and going into the discriminator. So, discriminator is becoming smarter as the time passes. So, this is how the back propagation works in discriminator training. So, I am not speaking about the generator. I have already explained to you what a generator does. Basically, the generator part of the GAN learns to create fake data by incorporating feedback from the discriminator. It learns to make the discriminator classify its output as real. Generator training requires tighter integration between the generator and the discriminator that discriminator training requires. The portion of the GAN that trains the generator includes random input, generator network, which transforms the random input into a data instance. So, if you consider the steps in the generator training, you have sample random noise, then the produced generator output from the sample random noise, get discriminator real or fake classification for a generator output. So, these are various steps and this is one iteration in the generator training. So, this is how the back propagation works in the generator training. So, here you see that the generator loss, it goes as back propagation to the as input to the generator. So, in this way generator is also knowing what discriminator is doing and accordingly generator becomes smarter, so that it creates such fake data that discriminator will not be able to distinguish between the fake data and the real data. So, a GAN contains two separately trained networks. Its training algorithm must address two complications. One is GANs must juggle two different kinds of training, generator and discriminator, and GAN convergence is hard to identify. So, the generator and the discriminator have different training processes. So, generator training and discriminator training, they do not happen simultaneously. When that happens, this stops, when this stops, when this happens, that stops, because it works on the back propagation. So, this output goes as input that for the other network, and so when that is getting trained, this does not get trained. So, this progression poses a problem for the convergence of the GAN as a whole. If you see, for a GAN, convergence is often a fleeting rather than stable state. GANs try to replicate a probability distribution. So, they use loss functions that reflect the distance between the distribution of the data generated by the GAN and the distribution of the real data. So, we have two loss functions here. One is the minimax loss, the other is Wasserstein loss. In a generative adversarial network, it can have two loss functions, one for the generator training and one for the discriminator training. Two loss functions work together to reflect a distance measure between probability distribution. The generator and discriminator losses look different in the end, even though they derive from a single formula. So, the most important thing is that you can use different loss functions at a generator level and discriminator level. The loss functions need not be the same. Normally, this minimax loss is used. Wasserstein loss is also used. Of course, you have to decide which one you have to use, basically based on your problem. Wasserstein GANs are less vulnerable to getting stuck than minimax based GANs and avoid problems with vanishing gradients. The earth mover distance also has the advantage of being a true metric, a measure of distance in a space of probability distributions. Cross entropy is not a metric in this sense. There are some problems with the generative adversarial networks. There are vanishing gradients, mode collapse and failure to converge. There are different types of GANs. Okay, progressive GANs. In a progressive generative adversarial network, the generator's first layers produce very low resolution images and subsequent layers add details. This technique allows the GAN to train more quickly than comparable non-progressive GANs and produces higher resolution images. So, these are progressive generative adversarial networks. Then we have conditional GANs. Conditional GANs train on a labeled data set and let you specify the label for each generated instance. For example, an unconditional MNIST GAN would produce random digits, while a conditional MNIST, that is Modified National Institute of Standards and Technology Database GAN, would let you specify which digit the GAN should generate. Instead of modeling the joint probability P x y, conditional GANs model the conditional probability P x by y. MNIST is a huge database. It will be very useful for you to train the neural networks. So, here you have image to image translation GANs. Here you are giving a sketch. See, for example, you have given the sketch of a bag and the output that is being provided by the GAN is this one. Okay. So, you have given a sketch, you got this output, but the truth is this one. So, your objective is that this should look exactly like this one, that should be your objective, but this is what is happening. So, you have given this one as input, you got this one as output, this is the truth. You have given this one as input, this is output, and this is the truth. So, image to image translation GANs are also there. You can see cycle GAN. Here, if you give one image, it will tell you another image as output, but a look-alike. So, if horse is input, a zebra will be output, because they are look-alikes. Then you have super resolution images. This is the original image, okay. This is a blurred image, and ultimately this is restored with a generative adversarial network. So, even in the case of such images, you have super resolution GANs that will help you out. Face inpainting, you have a photo, but a part of it is not visible. You have very older photos in the album, a part of it may got have torn or some ink had, whatever it is like. Here you see this image, a part is invisible, and after you have input to the GAN, this is the output. The same is the case here, the same is the case here. So, these things may not be exactly, but if your GAN is perfect, it can really put that particular portion which is invisible perfectly in the visible space. So, this is what is known as face inpainting. Like this, there are many applications. So, these are some of the sources and the references. Now, I have shown you some images initially. I asked you who are these, and I will tell you the answer. In case you have already names, you first share them, but what I would like to say that they do not exist anywhere. They all are neural network generated images. Okay. So, you see how much real they look. They really look like some photographs of existing people, but that is not the case. That is the fake data that is generated by the generator of a GAN, which looks very real, but discriminator hope that it will say that this is fake data. I hope you enjoyed this discussion on the GAN. Go through sources as well as references, you will get more information. Thank you very much.